Hello. Hi. Welcome to the Hell Zone. We're really in it now, folks. The Hell Zone, that is. And you're here with me, Dan. We're here together in the Hell Zone after the 2024 election, which feels a lot eerily like the 2016 election and the 2020 election. There's a common thread there. I don't know what it is, but it makes me feel bad. So I just wanted to say to you all, hello, welcome, and this is a live stream where not only do I chat, but you chat. We all chat for Chat Scream, and some of the things we like to talk about may involve current events, especially one that just happened. Um, and rather than doing a relaxing, chill stream that is interrupted every 5 or 2 minutes by someone being like, whew, how about that election? I wanted to go and get out in front and do a little chatting about the election now. That way I can flip this switch and we will not speak of this election today. I'm not going to say ever again, but not today. So we're going to have a couple minutes here where I go tell you some thoughts that I have, some of my lived experiences, which is important. So I'm not labeled a political extremist, that I tell you that these are my lived experiences. Um, and just kind of like chill out after that. Okay? So if you're like, oh, thanks, I got enough of this, I'm gonna go, come back in like 10 minutes. Or probably that. And then we'll be doing some relaxing, silly, fun things. But for now, politics. So, if you haven't heard, uh, the election happened, and we have. Let's go to the polls. Let's go to the data polls, uh, which is over here. Data polls. Um, we look at this, and if you're outside the U.S., maybe you don't know what this is. If you're inside the U.S., now you know what this is. Maybe you didn't yesterday, but now you do. This is the results of the election, and so it might be hard to see just because it's being reflected. Um, Nevada and Arizona are actually the two states that haven't been called yet by Associated Press, who has been calling the states pretty early. So, maybe, maybe not, but he is in the lead in the votes that they have counted. But, you know, we'll see. The point is, he has well over the electoral votes required to become the next president, will become the next president, is the next president. Uh, and that's a bummer. And, you know, on top of that, a big bummer right here, the Senate race. Also, uh, there is a majority in the Senate for Republicans as well, which, in combination with the president, is pretty bad because the United States government has three branches. All right. Okay, I don't need to go into that. But there is the president, the Senate, the House, and the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, all of those things are Republican. House is looking not great, but that one's actually not going to come in for a while because some of the races, I think, haven't ended yet. Um, but listen, the important part is it's bad. All right? I'm going to assume that if you are someone who's been worried about the results of the election, have been checking it, that people may have said, it's okay, it's fine. Some parts are okay, and some parts are not. So I'm not going to be here and sugarcoat that it's a bad result in a bad election. What I will look at is more numbers, because the numbers are interesting. Or they're boring, and maybe they'll put you to sleep before we start doing ASMR. One thing that I thought was very interesting is that we had record turnout. Well, not quite, but like as close to a record turnout as you can have. Where if you look at this is the number of people who did vote compared with the number of people who could vote. So it was about 65% of the adult populace in the United States that could vote did. As opposed to 2020, when there was about 1% more, and 2016, when there was 6% less. And it's kind of like, changed a bit. It's the lowest it ever got is in 1920 and 24, the Great Depression, when it went down to 50. But even since 1908, 66% has been as good as it's gotten. And I don't mean to tell you that. That's not everybody. It should be. If you are of the populace in the United States and you didn't vote, that's pretty bad. You should do that. You should have done that, and you should do it next time. And if you know people who aren't voting, you should have them vote because it's super important. And the thing is, yeah, Ashmo says if you don't vote, you can't complain. And I get where people are coming from when they say that. I say, if you don't vote, you should vote. If you don't vote, change that about yourself. You're doing a bad thing by not voting. Yeah, so it's like that's something that I've always felt like the amount of people that we have deciding this election is a lot lower than the amount of people who are here in this country, which bothers me on a structural level. Now, I can't change that, but it's worth keeping in mind as we look at some of these numbers that we're actually talking about 2/3 of the people. How would the other third vote? We don't really know. But when we look at stuff like exit polls, demographic data, one thing that's great to remember is that all this could change if a larger percentage of people voted. Who knows how it would change? The thing that I think is really interesting is that a lot of it doesn't change. A lot of the data from various elections does not change. And that's infuriating. The fact that only 65% of people vote doesn't change. The fact that, we have these statistical breakdowns. A lot of them are the same percentages year after year. And it breaks a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right each time. And that's infuriating because sometimes the things it breaks a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right over are really important and really big. I want to bring it back to time, the first time I voted, my lived experience. That was in 2008 with Barack Obama versus John McCain. Hmm? Remember when people voted against people who weren't Trump? You might not. You might not remember that. Um, like, I was in this age group, obviously, because I turned 18. And the way things turned out was that we were about 18% of the people who voted, us millennials, and 66 went for Obama, 32 went for McCain, right? That was a pretty historic turnout for us millennials. Um, Look at it again next time for Obama 2, 19%, 1% more, 60% voted for him, and 37% voted for Romney. So you had a little bit of an uptick for Romney. And I'm going to say it's probably because of the financial collapse. I'm going to say it's probably because of the big financial collapse that happened. But, there's a lot of data on this page, right? A lot of data. Lot of data. But it's interesting to look at that and see how things changed over the years. The third election I voted in, Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. One that seems very similar to this one, which is we just had Joe Biden in the office, and now we do not. It's not really the same because of that, but, still, 19% of the vote, 55% voted for Clinton, 36% for Trump. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different, but not actually that much different. Same amount of people, right? Same percentage of people, pretty much, but a lot less Democrats showed up. Even the same amount of Republicans. There was, under people my age, there was 1% less of them ditched the Republican Party. So Trump at that point got rid of 1% of people. Now, time is passing, so it's like we're all getting older, but new people are entering the battlegrounds. So now we've got 17% in the last most recent election. So the number of 18 to 29-year-olds went down 19 to 17%. It's 2%. And we're talking about pretty small percentages, but we're going to talk about bigger percentages. So I want you to keep in mind that these are fluctuations that are happening that are significant for sure, because we're talking about millions of people. But ultimately, the biggest change is that the 5% came back, right? That's the biggest thing. In this race, Hillary Clinton lost. In this race, Barack Obama won. In this race, Joe Biden won. That 5% could have made the difference. So if you are someone who's like 18 to 29, or like me, maybe you're not anymore, like being part of that voting populace can be enough. The same amount of people your age voted for Trump, the same amount of people your age voted for Romney, same amount of people your age voted for Trump, but way more people in those two elections that they won, 5%, which is pretty significant, went and voted for the Democratic partner. And I think that matters, and I think it really matters to go vote. So please try to remember the numbers when you are considering whether to go vote, whether you're talking to people, about how it does matter. Because the popular vote, as Ashmo says, was not won in this most recent one. In all the Trump elections, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, lost. Joe Biden won the popular vote, won. And then in this year, he lost. Well, okay, I don't have anywhere thing here that just shows the everyone, but here, everyone won the popular vote and won. Trump did. So some things have changed enough to move the needle. A lot of it is maybe we could look at these numbers a little bit more and we could find out, right? There are a lot of concerning patterns you could find. Definitely, you're going to find that who voted for Trump? Men. You know? The importance of local and state elections. Absolutely. Absolutely. There were so many California. I'm going to look up California propositions in the ballot measures that we had. I voted on all of these, and they were really important. Can you read this one? Are you allowed to say anything here in favor of Trump? You're allowed to say something, but you're not allowed to say something without repercussions, because if you voted for Trump, you aren't smart. I'll say, okay, there's two possibilities. People who voted for Trump, either one, ignorant. They've been misled by something. Maybe they didn't think about something. Or two, selfish. They don't care about other people, and they've turned off the part in their brain that cares about other people for the part in their brain that cares about themselves. So, if you would like to be called one of two of those things, you may indeed post something in favor of Trump. But I think the fact that people there was a proposition prohibiting slavery in jail. And I voted, obviously, to prohibit slavery, but there were not enough people. There were not enough people who voted for it. So, unfortunately, that proposition did not pass. Also, one that would have helped, rent control. That would have helped. I think raising the minimum wage, that would have been great. So, if you are only going to vote for things because of things that matter to you, at least go vote for the things in your local elections that make a big difference. Because they really do. This is misleading, this one here. Repealing the same-sex marriage ban. There is no same-sex marriage ban, but there was sort of a thing that was like, oh, we'll enshrine it, the right in the Constitution if this amendment passes, and we did vote for that, so that is good. But largely symbolic, because you currently can get married in California, and it is legal. And it's kind of just like how people have been enshrining abortion rights in their state constitutions, except we actually already have that here enshrined. So I guess we were like, well, we'll enshrine something else, I guess. So there are always small victories, and I think if there is anything that happened locally that you can be happy about, definitely feel happy about that. That's a win. A win is a win. And if anything bad happened, it's okay to feel bad about that. Um, Now, as for like making sweeping generalizations about people and who voted for who and this and that, you can do it a little bit. It's important to remember things that, like, hey, when we look at who voted for who, yes, more men voted for Trump than women by 10%. I think it's absolutely a factor of gender that men are too sexist not to go towards Trump. But 10%, by 10%. The other 44%, just as culpable as women. So I think it's like important to remember that even though there's bigger numbers, the fact that 44% of women voted for Trump still concerning. Um, Now, when you look at one thing that I've heard people talking about is a very confusing statistic, which was like the Hispanic and Latino vote that had a uptick of 13% voting for Trump, given the extremely anti-Latino rhetoric that has been going around. And what could be the reason for that? I don't know. It's definitely weird, though. Um, it definitely seems like people are voting against their own interests. But one thing I've heard people say is that a lot of people feel like uh, that it wouldn't be their interests because they're protected against the things that he's saying. Like where he's like, oh, he's talking about people like me, but not me. But he might be, though, is the thing. Um, and I don't know what the logic is there. I don't think there is anything. The I think the only read on it that's generous is to say it comes from a place of ignorance because someone was misled into thinking that this terrible rhetoric that someone's saying isn't actually about them. Perhaps lying about saying that Kamala Harris is a socialist because she's not a socialist. I'm a socialist. She's not like me. I don't claim her. I don't like her. I don't like Biden. I don't like Hillary Clinton. I'm cool with Obama. But, like, none of those people get the socialist stamp of approval from me, dog. Um, and then, like, another thing. Okay, the other is not helpful. Um, is that we were looking out here and we were saying the age group. This is one that I uh, noticed and said, this one's weird. Is showing that from 2020 to 2024, we had 5 to 6% of 18 to 29-year-olds, which is solidly at this point Gen Z. Right? Like, I think actually this is a pretty good marker for like this age group. 30 to 44 is millennial. This one is Gen X, and this one is Gen Z. I think it lines up pretty well with like the generational markers. Not that that means anything, because it's like, you can be kind of in between. But as we've defined generations, this one is kind of solidly the Gen Z. This one is kind of solidly the millennials, and this one's kind of solidly Gen X. And then this is boomers. Where we look at this, and there's been kind of no change between the voting here, 1%, 0%, but then everywhere else, we go way higher in the conservative. And that's kind of nuts. A lot of people say it's largely economics, is what I've been hearing. Um, maybe that's true. But if it is, it's definitely extremely selfish economics, where people are willing to look past kind of anything. Speaking of being able to look past kind of anything, the North Carolina governor, this was a really important race that maybe you don't know about. I would like to tell you about it. Um, this was a race against Mark Robinson, who has called himself things that I'm not able to say on stream, where it's really bad and nobody likes him. And as you can see, let's see what the Washington Post says. I can read what they said. Uh, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's gubernatorial campaign has been filled with scandal and inflammatory rhetoric. That's putting it very lightly. Uh, and I was, I think one of the pundits on CNBC or MSNBC, I think it was MSNBC, was talking about this race and said something that I felt was like pretty insightful, um, which I'm going to reiterate and then kind of butcher and then and just sort of claim it as my own, as most YouTubers and Twitch people will do. Um, and that's that this is a fairly down the middle split kind of state where it's what's considered a battleground state. It can go either way. This time it went Trump, but that doesn't mean it went Trump on all issues. That doesn't mean that the people are Trump on all issues. They're split kind of down the middle. And the fact that you can have someone who was as reprehensible as Mark Robinson, who even lost the support of Trump's party, if you can imagine how bad you have to be to lose the support of Trump's party, um, he was that terrible, but got 40% of the vote. That means of the people who voted, 4 out of 10 people went in there and said, he's still the one I'm voting for, though. Um, and the thing that I thought was insightful about that was that lets you know vaguely, roughly, that about 40% of people just don't care. There is just nothing that will deter them from their path of selfishness that they are on to check that red box. Um, you couldn't literally have someone uh, associating themselves with the Axis powers of World War II. You know the ones. Um, and you'd still vote for them. 40% of people. That says a lot, I think. That really tells me a lot about like people's motivations. I don't think 40% of people believe what like someone like Mark Robinson or Trump would say, you know? I think 40% of people don't care. I think there's a percentage of that 40% that does believe that, that's for sure. But I think the thing that I want to say that can be heartening to all you people out there who are looking at your fellow man and thinking bad things about them is that the bad things you're thinking about them should just be that there's a maybe like a 30% chance that they're bad people, but just because they're ignorant and selfish. And then 10% maybe they're really, really, really bad people. Um, you feel like most people just go down the list and check all the boxes under Democrats, the same for people voting Republican as well. And that's kind of what I mean by ignorant and or selfish. Because to do that is ignorant. Because you're literally ignorant of who you're voting for. And it's selfish because the side that you're picking is the side that has rhetoric about how it wants to put people into concentration camps. Um, You might not know this if you're outside of the United States. The United States has put people in concentration camps before in World War II. We did it less than other people, but the Japanese internment was one of the worst things that the US has ever done. And there are a lot. There are quite a lot. And it's not the first time. And, it's a great thing to think about for sure. Um, I think the fact that we're seeing more Republican Gen Z people, I really want you all to know because I'm focusing on that because, listen, I know you're watching this on Twitch or later on YouTube, so you're probably younger and you're either Gen Z or you can't vote yet. Um, and if that's the case, we got to come out against these people who are going conservative at such a young age. It's a big concern. I'm concerned about it. I don't want the Gen Zs to be hit with the Zoomer accusations and have it be accurate. You know what I mean? Um, while you look at something like this and it's like, okay, 42% of voting Gen Zs um, voted for Trump. That's a lot. That's almost half. And when we looked at the earlier things, like when I first graduated high school and was able to vote, 32 voted for the Republican John McCain. And let me tell you, I'm no fan of John McCain. I wasn't when he campaigned. I wasn't when he passed away. I sure as shit would have voted for him over Trump if we were living in a bizarro world that had two Republican parties and you had to pick one, or like a primary or something like that. Um, but yeah, 42 versus 32. So if we're talking statistics, that means millennials versus Gen Zs. Gen Zs are 10% more fascist. And that's a lot. That's a lot of people. I don't know how that happened. How'd that happen? So I think as we go forward, what we should do as a community is try to take care of that. Try to help people not be conservative. And I think to do that, there's only so much you can do because, like I said, people are either voting because they're evil, because they're ignorant, or because they're selfish. And I don't know how you can change two of those. I know that you can fix ignorance, that's for sure. You know, I don't think you can fix the other ones. And that's where my empathy ends, unfortunately. So if you're out there and you are an ignorant Gen Z Trump voter, I hope we can reach you and I hope we can teach you. If you're out there and you know some people who are just maybe misled about the truth and the facts of things, maybe they are just not plugged in enough to know how bad it is to vote for Trump, that it's not the same as voting for a McCain or a Mitt Romney even, that doing those things are not quite the same. Um, that's probably the most you can do. And what else can you do beyond that? Let me tell you. Try to stick with a community of people who have your back. You know, one of the reasons I started the Hell Zone Club is because I wanted to gather some people who are nice and fun and chill and who can support each other through these dark times that we were living in and are still living in. Um, and I think that's really probably the best way to get through on a personal level. You know, changing people's minds can't really be like something you rely on because sometimes things don't change, you know? Sometimes things really don't change. Like the 65% of people who have voted, that's probably not going to go up that much, you know? What are we saying in the chat here? Okay, so we've got a couple of people here who are a little bit ignorant. Um, Listen, folks, I understand if you are feel justified in in what you voted for, but the thing is that you're not. And this is what I'm saying is that like there is a degree to which you can change people's minds, but some people are just like going to create a false equivalence in their head and really downplay a lot of the bad rhetoric and bad actions that are done by the Trump campaign. Like, honestly, um, saying things like, oh, Kamala could have done a better job in office is comes from a place of ignorance, unfortunately. Um, because she was the vice president. The vice president doesn't do anything. Kamala Harris doesn't have she doesn't have an office. She didn't do anything. She was not part of a she got tacked on to a campaign afterwards, you know? Things like, oh, like gas prices, inflation. She didn't control any of that. Joe Biden did. And Joe Biden actually really did do a terrible job, but it might not be the way you think. Joe Biden did a terrible job by sidestepping the process in an election where we choose our candidate. It's not about stage presence because stage presence doesn't cause mass deportations. Mass deportations cause mass deportations. Overturning Roe versus Wade is not something that happens because of how likable someone is or how recognizable their name is. That's something that happens because they're bad people and they're doing bad things and they have bad intentions for the country and for people who live in that country. And I think that having someone be judged for completely unequal things is incredibly ignorant. The things that we hold Kamala Harris accountable for and the things we hold Donald Trump accountable for are completely different things. If Kamala Harris had been embroiled in as many legal issues as Donald Trump has been, I don't think we would be having the same conversation. We wouldn't be like, well, it's 1 point for Kamala, 1 point for Trump, this and this, they're about equal, so who cares anyway? Um, like, that is truly, truly a false equivalency. And it's not something that should be the basis. It used to be. Like, don't get me wrong. It used to be that way. Back with Barack Obama, John McCain, that was a thing where it was like, for all intents and purposes, it came down to, oh, who do you like more? You know, because at that point, the things that they were pitching were not as different as they are now. The things and campaigns that are being pitched are so crazily different that they would be unrecognizable. You know what I mean? Um, that's why for me, like, it's not even a question of how good was the campaign run, because it doesn't matter. That's not something that has been considered, even. Like we said with the North Carolina um, governor race, Mark Robinson run has run the worst campaign you can run. Legally, I think. I think legally you can't run a worse campaign without having being arrested, maybe. I don't know. Um, and still got 40% of the vote. People don't care, you know? People will vote for the side that they want to win, that does the things that they want. A lot of people say politics is about people, but it's not really. It's not. Politics is kind of way more about who will give me what I want. And one of the reasons that politics is so frustrating for me is that the person who will give me what I want was not in this election here with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. The person who will give me what I want was not here with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And it was not there with Kamala Harris, and it was not there with Donald Trump yet again. Like, for me, I'm someone who is not having anything served to me. And yet, I do go out and vote every single time, as I have since I've been able to, because it's important for all the reasons we've been talking about. And I think that there's a lot of people who probably agree that they're like, in reality, what am I? Probably an independent. I'm probably an independent the way that Bernie Sanders is an independent, where he caucuses with the Democrats. I'm a Democratic caucuser, perhaps, But the problem is, we don't have a party that is appealing to people like us, people who would like actual change. We have two bad parties. One is made up of conservative people who are changing only what they have to just to get reelected. And then the other side is filled with even more conservative people who are willing to pander to white supremacists in order to get reelected. And that's not helpful for anybody, It's almost to the point where I could believe in the future that we have two Republican parties and no Democratic Party. And you might say we already have that. But like, and I might say we already have that, but it might get worse. And that's definitely possible because, like, the degree to which that the Republican vote is just growing over time, is concerning, and it's definitely something that we should try to combat any way we can. I don't know. I don't know that we can, but I do know that that's the reality we live in, and I do know that some people will die as a result of this election. Definitely, there will be people who are not able to get the health care that they need as a result of this election, as there have been from the 2016 election. There will be people who are removed from their families, have their property taken away. There will be people who don't make it. And that is extremely upsetting. But listen, we are going to do our best, everybody. And most importantly, I think, we're going to remember that you, hopefully, will be okay. I think I think that we can hope that you will be okay. That this by itself is not the end, and we can keep on going, because keeping on going is really the only option that we have. And that's not a lot to look forward to, but it is, uh, it's something, right? Anyway, um, wait, hold on. Ducky's asking to answer the question of what are you talking about? Okay. What am I talking about? Politics. Sorry you got lost. U.S. politics. All right. Now, I believe that's good enough. Okay. Um, we are going to switch over and stop the politics chat because I just wanted to get that out of the way, where we were going and talking about the things that are on our minds, getting a little bit of that out here, and mostly so I can feel good in my heart for turning on a sign that says we're not talking about politics. So from this point forward, if you talk about politics, you'll be muted. And if you wish to have any more answers, I really hope that you can watch the VOD, because I think I've said about what I want to say. Um, Thank you, Voxel. I was just about to do that. And please, uh, don't don't just be kind to your neighbor. You should be doing that automatically. But I think what you should do is be kind to your neighbor and be even more kind to the people who aren't your neighbors. Like, care about other people. Please. Please care about other people. And if you do care about other people, try to reach out and help people in whatever way you can. Politics is probably not the way. It's definitely a big bummer when the big sign comes out and they wave it and they're like, "We don't care." But yeah, I don't think politics is it. But you know what is it? Is us here relaxing, chilling out, having a good time. Because I don't know about you, but I had a very, very stressful day. And I had a very, very stressful night yesterday. And I got about no sleep. And that's just been going on in a circle since I turned 18. Um, and I think we could all use a nice break from that. How about you?